So good morning, everybody. Welcome to another STC webinar, this time hosted by Prova PR, all around communications and marketing. Should be a fascinating session. As you all know, these are part of a whole series that we've been doing. So by all means, have a look at the Sales and Technology Cluster website to look for future events, and obviously sign up for all the ones that are of interest to you. We also have a very good back catalog of these, so do please visit our YouTube channel where you can see all the previous ones. There's lots of really good stuff in there. So please engage with that with us. Just a bit of housekeeping as we normally do. I'm about to hand over to Ed, who is going to guide us through the session and talk to us all about it. But let's let Ed do his presentation, let him run through the whole thing, and then we will have a question and answer session sort of right at the end. So if you do have any questions, please either use the chat functionality to type them in, or afterwards, by all means, raise your hand or give us a little wave on camera, and then we'll hand over to you. You can ask your question in person. So let's do all of that. And I think that's about it. I mean, as you all know, these sessions are being recorded. So if you don't want to be on screen, then by all means switch off your camera and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure I'll say it again at the end. But everybody here, you will be sent at slides afterwards, and we'll also send you a video of the recording, as well as Ed's details. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to follow up afterwards as well if you wanted to. So I think that's about all I could possibly say. So I'm now going to hand over to Ed to start. So Ed, over to you.
Thank you, Pim. That's a very kind introduction. Right, with the power of technology, I'm just going to try and share my screen. Right, can everybody see my presentation? A thumbs up will be sufficient. Wonderful, thank you, Pim. Thank you very much, Pim, for asking me to lead this webinar today, and really to discuss how communications, marketing, and public relations can drive commercial growth. So, it never works when you want it to work. Here we go. I'm going to have to do it a slightly different way. I'm just going to take 30 minutes of your time maximum. I'll try not to bore you too much. If I'm boring you, please throw in any questions. But I just want to talk about really what is communications? Why is it so important? How can it drive commercial growth? Can it drive commercial growth? And then really, should we all be doing it? So a very quick introduction to myself and to Prova. My name's Ed. I am the Director of Communications at Prova. We're an integrated consultancy. We're based in Warwick. We've got more than 20 years experience in corporate B2B communications. And we operate really at the forefront of motorsport, automotive, the future of technology, the future of fuels, electrification, clean technology, those businesses that are really pioneering and pushing the future. And we work with clients really all across the spectrum, everyone from university spin-outs through to big global market leaders and to some extent unicorns as well. And we really do deliver some pretty powerful work for them. We've also got our own investment arm. So we invest in our clients and organizations that are trying to pioneer the future of their industries. That gives us skin in the game. It means that we really do understand the entire business journey, right from inception through to investments, through to fast growth, through to long-term growth, and then exits as well. And I'm just going to take you through really what we do, the industry that we work in, how we do what we do, and it would be great to hear your thoughts, and it'd be great to answer some of your questions at the end. So, in a nutshell, what is comms? What is communications? What's public relations? What's marketing all about? It's really storytelling. It's about telling a story. It's about making people aware of who you are, of what you do, what makes you special, what makes people interested in your organization. And good old Bill, he may be pushing it, maybe not the last dollar, but it explains that comms really is important to your organization. It's not about fluffy press releases. It's not about a tweet about the weather. It's about engaging with people who are going to change the future of your organization. And it's about doing it in a strategic way. So is it important? Yeah. If people don't really know who you are, and if people don't really know why you do it in the way that you do, are they going to buy from you? Are they going to invest in you? I'm not so sure. But on the flip side, with good communications, with good PR, with good marketing, you can position yourselves head and shoulders above the competition. You can really position yourselves as different, as a market leader, as a pioneer, as an organization. We do things. And PR and comms, it's not about spin. It's not about bending the truth. It's not about lying to organizations. It's not about trying to make ourselves sound better. Somebody once described it to me as it's the porthole to the boardroom. It's about giving people that are interested in your organization, whether that's customers, whether that's investors, whether that's government personnel. It's about giving them the insight about why you do what you do and how good you are at it. So then, surely comms is just about writing tweets and writing press releases and putting some stuff on a website and shouting about how good we are. Well, actually, it's much more. I hear the same thing, and I was talking to Pim about this earlier, actually. I hear the same thing almost on a daily basis. Don't worry, Ed, we're sorted. We know who our customers are. We know who our prospects are. Our order books are full. We don't need to do any of this comms business, any of this PR activity. We're all sorted. And actually, it's so much wider. When you're communicating, when you're delivering comms for your business, it's about talking to lots of different audiences. So yeah, absolutely, it might be your existing clients, it might be your prospects, but at the same time, it might be potential investors. It might be the local community. It might be the next employees, the future talent that you're looking to bring in over the coming years. It could be government. It could actually be a potential buyer for the business. And while you could put up one Twitter post and say, hey, we've got this great new product, or while you could put out a press release to the media to say, we've appointed a new CEO and they're great, actually, comms is about talking to all of these different audiences in different ways over the lifetime of your business journey. And you need to talk to each in a slightly different way. You need to understand what value your business can bring to them, what they need to understand. And then it needs to be an ongoing conversation. So therefore, what can we do? How can we communicate with our audiences? How can we get our corporate messaging out to the marketplace? How actually can we drive commercial growth in the long term? And there are so many different ways of doing this. Everything from a news feed, telling people about what you're doing, when you're doing it. Now, this might be new products, new services. It could be new appointments. It could be new investments. It could be innovations or new technologies. But it's all about, it's all about communicating to the marketplace and telling them what's new, what's different, what's exciting about your organization. It could be thought leadership. So rather than just saying, hey guys, we're really great, it's actually demonstrating that, showing what we know, showing the insight and the knowledge that we've got within our four walls, profiling the senior teams as real experts in what they're doing. It could be case studies. It's not good enough sometimes just to say, hey everybody, we've launched this new product and it's great. It's about suggesting how our customers have used these products and how our customers are finding them. And actually, our customers think we're brilliant. So it's that third-party endorsement to the wider industry. And it doesn't just have to be the media as well. It's not just about talking to journalists and engaging with them, hosting one-to-one briefings maybe. It's about the other ways of talking as well. It's about the other ways of communicating, multi-channel strategies. So digital channels as well. And we've all seen the increase in social media. We've all seen how important websites are to people and Google AdWords. But actually, they are really important and we do need to be using them. So whether it's LinkedIn,
I hope we haven't just lost Ed. It kind of looks like we may have done.
it's being recorded again. It's about talking to all of the different audiences within the organization as well. So we need to think about newsletters. We need to think about how we present ourselves to the team in meetings. We need to think about our intranet, lots and lots of different ways. And then also, what else can we do? How else can we get out to prospect customers? Is it conferences? Is it exhibitions? Is it webinars like this one? Is it podcasts? There are so many different things that we should be considering. And these are all really important because this allows us to present ourselves as organizations that really are doing something different, doing something cool, and open for business. Wouldn't it be terrible if nobody knew that we existed and that we didn't talk to each other and we didn't talk to the marketplace? Because we're all doing some amazing things, but without communications, nobody knows about them. So what are the benefits of communicating? What's the reason to do it? Why should we write press releases? Why should we have a LinkedIn channel? What's the point of having our websites? Well, really, it's three things. It's about building trust. And it's important for people to trust you as an organization. If they don't know who you are, if they don't know what makes you different, would they trust you? Would they buy from you? I'm not so sure. It's about a reputation. Now, if you work with some amazing companies and if you deliver things on time to specification, you start to build a reputation as a credible organization. That's really important if somebody's looking to buy from you, to invest in you, to potentially work with you. And it's about creating a positive image. It's about showcasing that you're an organization that people want to buy from, that want to work with, that want to invest in. It's this positivity and making yourselves really visible in your prospect marketplaces in front of those customers that potentially they don't know who you are. They haven't really heard about you in previously. So getting in front of these new prospects. So that's great. And obviously it's easy for me to say because I write press releases and thought leadership articles and I write case studies for a living. But where should you start? What are the really important things that you need to be doing straight away if you're not doing them already? Well, I sat down and I thought about this in great detail earlier this week. And I thought if it was down to the last dollar that Bill Gates says at the start of the presentation, the first thing that I'd do is make sure that the website of my organization was brilliant. So it's the hub, it's the first place that people come to. We all search on Google these days. We use search engines. If somebody wants to know about your organization, they'll Google you. If they come across your website, it's the first impression of your organization that they have. They want to see that you're dynamic, that you're creative, that you're an organization that they want to work with, to partner with, to buy from. And that website is a great way to make a good first impression. And key to that, number two, is investing in photography. Now, we might make the best products in the world. We might offer the best services anywhere in the marketplace. But if our photography is rubbish, if everything's taken on an iPhone, if we haven't really thought about what it should look like, what sort of image we want to portray, then people won't take us seriously. So second piece of advice here, really invest in great photography. Make everything that you do, whether it's your website, your social media channels, your online presence, your press releases, make it look really smart. And great photography is a perfect way to do that. And then start a blog. Starting a blog is an interesting way to start communicating to external audiences because there's no rules. You don't have to follow any path. You can just talk about the good stuff that's happening behind closed doors. And the people that are landing on your website, the people that are going to your social media channels, they'll start to see it. They'll start to understand your personality. They'll start to know a bit more about you. And it doesn't need to take a lot of time. 10 minutes, 500 words max. You can pop something on the website and people can go and read it in their leisure. And then creating social media feeds. Now, I'm sure that we all have social media feeds already. If we don't, create a few. If you want to know which ones to create first, I'd suggest LinkedIn's a priority and make sure that your LinkedIn channel is absolutely singing straight away. But optimize it as well. Make sure that you've added all of the relevant information. Make sure that you're posting on a 2 or 3 times weekly basis. Make sure that you're using it to its full potential and that people that are landing on your social feeds find out more about your organization, what you do, and why you're so special. And then this is an interesting one as well. This takes us away from just talking to audiences and more towards driving commercial growth. Horizontal innovation, we're all doing it already, taking something that we're doing in one sector and positioning it in another. So think about it this way. Are you looking to enter new markets? So if you're operational in motorsport, are you looking to branch out into aerospace and space? Are you looking to enter new geographies in the UK and want to go into America or China? Actually, communications can really help in this process. So do you know exactly who your prospect customers are in those marketplaces? Do you have lists? Do you know where to start? Well, actually, I'd start with communications. I'd start by talking about your capabilities, your visions for the future, what you could be doing, how you could be helping people, using the media, using blogs to do this, using the website, using your social channels, and really using it to get into these different verticals. So we know what we're doing, but it's just a different way of looking at communications and really using it to start to work in partnership with the commercial team. And giving you an example of this, if we want to take example 1, go from motorsport into aerospace or space, it's a great opportunity to write a thought leadership piece, place it into the aerospace media, and then give that to your commercial team to take to prospect customers. Have you read this fantastic article that we wrote for XYZ magazine? Do you want to talk to us about how we could help your organization? It's a really interesting way of looking at things, and it starts to show how PR and communications can start to deliver commercial growth. And then looking further afield. So talking about our organizations to the marketplace is great. It's really positive. We're going to build a good reputation, great relationships. We're going to build trust with the market. But is it just about attracting new prospect customers or attracting new staff? Well, actually, there's a really interesting argument here that if you're looking for funding, it can really help. We work at Prova very, very closely with the funding market, with venture capital firms, with private equity houses. And I can tell you straight away that the market is very, very busy. There are so many organizations that are looking for funding. So how can we stand out? How can we position ourselves in front of the funding marketplace as experts, as unique, as different, as innovative? Well, again, that's where communications comes in. We need to be talking about these things. We need to be celebrating our successes. We need to be shouting about our new products, our new services, our new teams, our new innovations, because these are the things that really grab the attention of funders. And then in the same vein, what about when we exit? What about when we look to sell an organization? Do we know exactly who we're going to sell to? Probably not. It's great that our accountants are saying we need to get the books ready, but actually we need to get our communications ready as well. We need to be positioning ourselves as a hugely successful organization. We need to be showcasing prospect buyers that we're the perfect purchase for them. We need to be engaging with the business community and positioning ourselves in front of the wider global media as a success story to make ourselves attractive. So again, communications has this really intricate and interesting way of really driving business decisions. So it really is about positioning yourselves for exit in the future. And it's not a quick process. 2 years before you start thinking about your exit, you need to think about how you're positioning yourself for that exit. So in conclusion, what is communications and how can it drive commercial growth? Is it just putting something on Twitter? No. Is it just writing a short press release and sending that out to the local press? No. It's much deeper than that. It's an important part of your corporate strategy. And we need to be thinking at every level, how do we communicate? How do we position ourselves in front of our audiences? What do we need to say to each of them? How do we need to say it? What will make our organization appear a market leader? What USP do we have? What will people invest in? So there's lots of questions here that we need to be really thinking about, and it needs to be part of that corporate strategy. So when Bill Gates said if it was his last dollar, he'd spend it on PR and communications, he wasn't saying it is the only thing that I'd ever do if my fortune was running out. He was just saying, wow, this is intrinsic to the running of any organization, and everybody needs to be thinking about how to incorporate it. So is it difficult? Is it time consuming? Is it clever? Well, not really. It takes time and it takes thinking, but it should just be a part of every day. We should be thinking about communications in the same way that we think about accountancy. Every decision that we make, we should be thinking about the consequences, the opportunities, who we need to talk to, how we need to talk to them, what we need to say. And therefore, communications really is part of that growth trajectory for an organization. It's really important. It can identify the next prospect customers. It can identify the next prospect team members. It can help us to get in front of the right people. It can help us to source funding. It can actually help us to exit the business in time. So it really is an instrumental part, and it's really important to think about. So my advice is, if you haven't already, start something today. If you don't have a lot of resources, a lot of financial backing for it, do something really well. Invest time in making sure that your website looks the part. Invest time in making sure that your LinkedIn profile really does shine and it's got great photos on it and it's really interesting, really vibrant, and showcases the personality of your organization. But don't forget about it. Don't forget about communications, because the consequences of ignoring it really are you disappear into the marketplace. So many people are doing it well, and there's a risk that if you don't do it at all, people will stop remembering you. They won't understand what makes you different. They won't consider you when they're trying to make that purchase decision. So in a nutshell, it's essential and we can't do without it. So really, that's communications in a nutshell. So back over to everyone else, really. It'd be great to hear any questions that you have, any feedback, any help that you'd like. We can do some live Q&As, some live workshops almost.
Excellent, thank you, Ed. Very, very interesting, and a very good message there. I very much echo everything that you said. That lots of people kind of go like, yeah, we already know everybody, so we're done here, which is always quite interesting to hear. I mean, obviously, if anybody has any questions, please either put them in the chat or by all means, sort of raise your hand. But I kind of like to kick off with one because I mean, obviously, ideal scenario, you know, we've got plenty of cash. We'll employ somebody like yourself to just do it all for us. I mean, that would be amazing. But if we're not in that situation, if we're just part of a very, very small team, or maybe even a one-man band, you know, where do you start? What should you do first? What are kind of like easy wins, easy steps to success? How do you go about it? Can you tell us a little bit about that? You know, how do you kickstart this to generate some cash?
Great question, Pim. If it was me, the first place that I'd start and the real area of focus would be the corporate website. If you have 20 quid or 500 quid, no resources, no money, invested in the website. Invest in making sure that your online presence is positive. There's no point distributing all of your resources and all of your money across 17 different elements, trying to do press releases and thought leadership and social media. Just do one thing, but do one thing really well. And make that website the hub of your organization, the one landing place that prospect customers, that prospect investors, that prospect staff can land on and immediately go, I get this is interesting. So that might be through great pictures, it might be through a blog, it might be through an interesting news section. And again, news stories don't have to be long, 100 words. This is what we're doing, we're keeping the market up to date. But I'd say website, first point to call. Second point, social media channels. Again, they're really accessible for everybody. So many people use social media, and it would be a shame if we aren't all following that digital journey. Third priority, start talking to the media. There are hundreds of journalists all over the country that are fascinated about what different organizations are doing. And each of us has a story to tell. It doesn't need to be a perfectly drafted press release or a intricately drafted 2,500 word thought leadership feature. Sometimes it's as easy as ringing up a journalist and saying, I've seen that you're writing this sort of content, or I read your story on this last month, thought it was fascinating. Would you be interested in sitting down with me over a cup of coffee and talking about what we're doing as an organization, how we're changing the future, how we're working with our customers to really drive value? So just getting those building blocks in place, nailing the stuff that you can control, and then maybe getting a bit braver, going out to external audiences.
Excellent, thank you. I mean, again, if anybody has any questions, please sort of fire them in. I'll keep going in the meantime, because obviously I'm quite happy to talk about this for the longest of time. Can you maybe talk to us a little bit about what some of the most common mistakes are that people make? Because you talked about what you should be doing. Are there definite things like, you know, don't do that, or be very mindful if you do that? You know, are there any obvious errors that people engage in?
Great question again. I think the most common one, and this comes down to almost that feeling that we discussed at the start. I've got it all sorted. I know who my customers are. I know who my prospects are. I know the industry. I've done this for 50 years. Don't worry, we've got it nailed. The most common mistake that I see is people that don't communicate at all. And they've got a website. Don't worry, we've got a website. It has our phone number on. People know who to call and when to call them if they need to. But if we don't communicate, if we don't show people, new prospects, new audiences, what we're doing, how we're changing, how we're developing, they're never going to know. And it may not be important for the best organizations in the world, but let's take the example of Skoda. 20, 30 years ago, Skoda wasn't the best brand in the world. If you said, what car would you like to buy? Not everybody would say, I would love to buy a Skoda, thank you very much. But obviously, through the acquisition and then through an excellent communications program, they started talking about how they were changing. They didn't on day one say, we are amazing, everybody come and buy a Skoda. But they started to build confidence in the marketplace. They started to build that trust back, that reputation back. And now, You ask somebody about what they think of Skoda, great cars. Yeah, pretty much a VW, cost effective, perform brilliantly. Yeah, I'd love a Skoda, thank you very much. And all of that's been through communication. So the idea of not communicating is hugely risky, because it's not just for tomorrow, it's for the long term. And if we do want to source funding in the long term, we need to be talking to potential funders. If we do want to be looking towards an exit in the future, we do need to be talking. It doesn't necessarily have to be to prospect customers or existing customers. It can be to our next employees. It can be to governments who are probably going to throw some curveball legislation in there at some point. And we need to be talking to them to tell them exactly what impact that could have on our organization. So
yeah, excellent.
Yeah, not communicating.
Yeah, and I like your point on the website as well, because it's clearly very important to have a good website, but at the same time, if that's all you do, if you just put up a website, then basically you've put up a market stall in pretty much an infinite marketplace. So people might stumble across it, but wouldn't it be helpful to put some signals out to get the right people to come and visit your market stall? Because it is a pretty big marketplace out there.
Absolutely, and I think that's a great way to position it, Pim. How do you get people to visit your website? Now, the easiest way in the world is word of mouth. If I pop down to the end of the street and shout out to everybody, hey everybody, I've got this new website, go and visit it, you might get some people that drop onto your website. If you go down to the local pub and have an apple juice on a Friday night, you might be able to increase your audience. But when you've extended to your own network and you're running out of ideas, how do you drive web traffic? Well, actually, that's where communications comes in. That's where talking to people on social media, or making sure that you're published in the press, or making sure that you're pushing your blogs out to a wider audience. That's really important. But get the website right, because if you run before you can walk and you're doing great thought leadership into the international automotive media, and then people jump back to your website and it's actually hasn't been updated for 15 years and the photos are rubbish, they don't have that feel, that trust, that understanding of what you do and just how good you are.
Yeah, very, very true. Also, one thing that I wanted to raise, and it's something that I've come across, and I know that Jeff has come across it as well, and you must come across this, I'm absolutely sure. How do you get people to appreciate what they should be talking about? Because I've been in a lot of meetings where they talk about some of the stuff they've done, and they somehow don't feel that that's newsworthy or that they should talk about that. And as a comms person, you're sitting going like, oh my God, of course you need to talk about that. But kind of like, because it's a normal thing for them, they kind of don't push that forward as something that they want to really shout about. So how can companies, because it's almost taking a step back and putting yourself in position of the customer and kind of like, what would I want to hear about? But not many companies seem to do that, and they seem to find it quite hard. Are there any tips you can give around that, on how to best go about that? How do you eke out what you should be talking about?
That's fascinating, and I agree. Such a shame when people do that, because there are so many untold great success stories that are just held within the brains of people in different organizations, never to be told. And what I'd say is, news is really simple. News is new things. Every time something new has happened, you need to be telling somebody about it. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't need to be, hey, we've got a new vending machine installed, let's go and tell the global media about it. But when something new happens, you do need to think, who needs to know about this? Is it important enough? And the way that I'd suggest thinking about communicating with the media and working out if that story is media worthy is just doing some sense checks on it. So is it different? Does anyone else in the marketplace do this? Because we don't want to be going out to the media and saying, hey, we do this, 7 other people do, but don't worry, we do it too. Is it unique? Is it different? Is it innovative? Is it going to help people? Is it going to change the way that an organization can operate? Because it might be the most incremental change to an engineer, but it might dramatically improve efficiencies, multi-million pound efficiencies for another organization. So it's working out who needs to hear about that news, how they need to hear about it, and why it's so important. Because yeah, let's be honest, new vending machine in canteen, not particularly important for prospect customers, really important for staff. So still worth communicating, worth talking about. Is it a tiny change to a widget that you're manufacturing that you think could really help a global business to improve efficiencies? Yeah, great. Go and tell the world. But don't hold news back. Don't worry about over communicating, because that's really the biggest failure that we have. We don't want to shout about ourselves. We're all humble people. We're all humble organizations. Biggest mistake that we make is people won't be bothered. People don't want to know about us. The people that need to know about us already do. So it's being brave and not worrying about standing up and starting to shout from the rooftops. And even with some of the, I'll just make a point and then I'll hand over to you. Even with some of the incremental changes that you made, it's always worth still putting that out, because even if it's not particularly new or not particularly exciting, it is actually quite a useful reminder that, you know, you are really quite good at what you do. And it's quite important to push that out as a reminder to go like, hey guys, we're still pushing ahead. We're still doing all these things. We're still great. You should still be dealing with us. So if nothing else, it's quite a useful thing to use it for that. But sorry, let's go up to Alejandra, is it?
Alejandra, yes. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. I have a question. So right now, our company, Fox Robotics, is not really able to share any information online because we're working on IP. So what is your ideas in this? Like, what else are we able to put forward in social media channels, LinkedIn, newspapers? Because I've been trying to find creative ways in getting across to customers, potential investors, and, you know, the community, but I'm not really sure what to share or what to do and how to do it without oversharing too much. Because what you said right now is there's nothing wrong by over communicating, and it's great when you feel comfortable and you can do so. But at the moment, we're not in that position to actually share what we're up to. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. No, that's a brilliant question. Something that we're asked very frequently. Let's be honest, if we're making brakes for F1 teams, can we talk about it? No, probably not. Does that mean that we should stop communicating? No. And actually, what I'd suggest is the information, the insight, the pioneering thinking within your organization is probably huge and absolutely fascinating for more people. So 3 ways that I think that would be a good sort of starting point. Number 1, thought leadership. Can you talk about the industry, how it's developed, where it's going in the future, how your organization is helping to drive that future, and the hugely important role that it plays in transitioning towards robotics of 2030, 2050. Can you write white papers and really start to talk about the projects that you're working on without organization names, but with interviews with the people that are working in programs, the background to your organization, the future, where you want to go, where you're looking to achieve. And then those white papers can be hosted on the website. But also, people quite like the fact that you can't talk about the projects that you're involved in. It's almost, it's known within the industry that we can't say, hey, we're doing a great project for this organization over here. This is the technology that we're using, because obviously it'll be stolen within a minute. So instead, can we talk about what we are as an organization, who we are, what we're doing? Can we put out press releases about how much the team has grown, how much our business is growing, our vision for the future? There is a lot of different ways that we can communicate without really telling anybody about our technology, our IP, our customer base. And those stories sometimes are the most interesting. And even ringing up a journalist and just asking them to have a one-to-one briefing session with the senior team about where the organization's come from, where it's going to. Journalists understand, they know that we can't talk about the nitty-gritty detail, but they would be fascinated to learn about the journey of the organization.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Really helpful, thank you.
I think, Ed, you'd probably back me up on this. It's also sort of identifying your audiences, because what you indicated is kind of like if you're focused around communication to staff or potential staff, it's quite different stories that you can tell and quite different angles that you can take than if you're looking to attract potential investors or even clients or any of that sort of stuff. So I think it's considering the stories that you can tell and also the audiences that you can tell it to kind of, really widen your communication scope. Would you agree? I hope.
Yeah, I absolutely agree 100% with you, Pim. And yeah, it's finding out who those audiences are that we want to talk to, what we can say to them, what we want to say to them, and then doing it in a really easy to understand way. Sometimes we overcomplicate everything as organizations, and simple is often better. And talking about the values of the sectors that we work in, the challenges, the opportunities. I mean, I have read so much about how Brexit is impacting Industry X, but I'm fascinated. I want to know more. I'd love to hear about Industry 4 and what it means for this sector over here. Just producing that content and creating something that taps into that wider conversation is hugely valuable.
I see, because the other thing that just came to my mind is, for example, we're often trying to find funding. And if we make an article about, let's say, Brexit, it's quite difficult because my views are X and some investors' views might be Y. So I'm just worried about coming across left or right-sided and it basically shooting ourselves in the foot. So how do you make sure you keep a neutral point of view as well?
Talk about the industry.
Just
so
the
rather than specifically your organization, talk about how Brexit's impacting the industry, and then whether or not it's an opportunity or a challenge that you have to overcome. So for example, I did something very similar for a logistics company a few weeks ago. And obviously the logistics industry has been thrown into all sorts of challenges because of Brexit, but they're identifying the opportunities. And rather than saying, we think that Brexit is good or bad, their approach was, Brexit's happened and here's what it's done to the industry. There are some excellent opportunities over here, and here are some challenges that we need to overcome. If we can overcome these challenges, we're in a great position for the future. And we want to share our advice with other logistics firms who are probably experiencing the same challenges too.
Okay, thank you.
What I would actually add to that as well is that if, as in your example, if you're particularly on the left side or something and potential investors are on the right side, it's actually worth considering as well, do you want investors in your company who think opposite to what you do on a number of different things? So I do think that it's very important in terms of your tone of voice and how you communicate and who you stand for to be truthful about that. I don't think you should paint a false picture of yourself just for a particular person, a particular purpose, because people are eventually going to find out, right? So I do think it's quite important to make sure that you're quite genuine in your voice. I mean, Ed, can you expand on that a little bit, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, Pim. It's the tone of voice of your organisation, and it's setting out from the outset what you believe in, what things are important to you, and then communicating it in a way that other people can understand. But that's absolutely staying true to your values and saying, this is what we're trying to achieve. Here's how we're trying to do it. And we're really proud to be the organisation that we are. Because that's almost what makes us different. We're not always completely unique in the marketplace, but our way of doing things, our beliefs, our vision for the future will always be slightly different. And it's bringing on board those people, those customers, those investors, those staff members that buy into our story and want to be part of the journey. Let's think about the automotive marketplace for 2 minutes. There are so many different cars that you can buy, so many different fuel types, so many different brands. Let's be honest, they all get you from A to B. But it's all about that brand, that positioning, that perception. I want to drive a BMW because I really believe in the new engine that they're developed, and I really believe in this vision of efficiency and not breaking down or whatever it may be. But you buy into companies and their brand and their position in the marketplace.
So Ed, you talked a little bit about obviously setting up a website, which it's with a bit of effort you could probably do yourself, and there's lots of platforms out there that could help you. Obviously you can dive into social media yourself, and that's relatively straightforward to do. And again, there's platforms out there like Hootsuite and what have you to help you with that as well. But in terms of sort of communicating with the press and getting into magazines and getting into newspapers and all that sort of stuff, that must be quite a barrier. How would you do that? Because I mean, if you're decent at writing, you could probably come up with a press release. But how do you make sure that goes into newspapers or ends up on the desk of the people that it needs to? Is there anything that you can do yourself to help with that?
Yeah, good question, Pim. I'm going to break the trade secret now. Comms and PR, it's not difficult. It's not rocket science. You've got journalists who are really interested about what companies have to say, and you have companies who want to talk about what they're doing. So the easiest way to look at it is let's write a press release. And all a press release is talking about something new. And 5 key principles: who, what, where, why, and how. Who, Ed, what, is presenting a webinar with the STC and PIM. Where, online. When, today. And how, by the virtue of modern technology. And I'm not saying that is a press release in itself, but that's the basics. And if we can take that from a business perspective, it's about launching a new product. When? Tomorrow. How? With this fantastic launch event that you can come to as well if you like. And then taking that to the media. All of the media contact details are on their website. If you say, click on the Contact Us page, there is an editor that you can pick up the phone to or send an email to. And if you have an interesting story or something to tell them, 9 out of 10 times, they give you the time of day and the opportunity to have a conversation. Now, it might not be the right story for them. And it would be wonderful if every single story that you sold to the press was automatically published across 76 different titles. That doesn't happen. But if it's the right story, if it's something that they're interested in, being published in a magazine isn't too difficult. It just takes a bit of time. And it takes the time to write your story or to speak to the journalist and talk about what a briefing with your company could do, or writing a case study or writing a blog piece for them. But it's not too hard. And I would say the first place to start is have an idea and then pick up the phone to a friendly journalist. If you read their publication already, you know what topics they're interested in, you know what they're writing about. And if you can reference an article that they wrote in the last edition, they know that you're serious. They know that you're on their wavelength, and they'll be happy to talk to you.
And I think that also comes down to identifying your audience and what's relevant. Because if you're about to launch a new boat, there's no point to email the editor of a gardening magazine, because it's clearly completely irrelevant. So it's picking your audience and kind of knowing, what is the story that I want to put out there, and what are the people that I want to aim that at? What are they reading, and how does that fit? So I'm sure that if you have a bit of a think on, who you're writing for, who you're trying to approach, you can identify the various editors and the various publications that you want to get in touch with, I presume.
Absolutely. My one piece of advice is read the publication top to bottom beforehand. Make sure that there's no reason why the editor could say, I have no interest in your story whatsoever. Just have an example. I read your publication last month, and I was fascinated by the article that you included about robotics and the future of robotics. I wonder if you'd be interested in something else, talking about robotics in 2030 and what the industry could look like. It's non-promotional, it's non-commercial. I'm not trying to sell my organization, but instead I'm just trying to add some value and tell an interesting story to your readers. I think you could see a lot of success.
Excellent, thank you for that. Did anybody else have any questions or any careers or anything they wanted to raise? As always, now we have the expert in the room. I think it's always a good chance to make sure we get as most out of Ed as we can. So anybody else? Excellent. Well, if that's it, we'll kind of wrap up here then. I mean, Ed, thank you very much. I thought it was very insightful. As I said before, you know, everybody will receive Ed's presentation, and obviously the video will be online as well. I don't know what happened right in the middle, by the way, and apologies for that. And just Zoom for me completely disappeared for a moment, and then it came back. So I don't know what went on. The vagaries of modern technology, I suppose. Yeah, so thank you all very much for attending. As I said, you know, there will be a follow-up, and you'll have the opportunity to follow up with Ed as well. If you wish. What I'd like to do now, as per usual, is run a little feedback poll for everybody. So that should be popping up on your screen now. So if you could obviously tell us what you thought of the event, that would be great. But also please let us know what you want to hear about, you know, in future sessions. We're always happy to make sure that you get out of these what you need. So do please let us know. So while that is happening, I'll say goodbye to the viewers online. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Something to do with alcohol's rhythms, good thing. Please do that. And hopefully we'll see you at the next one. Obviously, there's more videos on a YouTube, but do check out silversteinetechnologycluster.com for upcoming events as well. And we hope to see you at a future one. So thank you very much for watching.